What's going on, guys? Nick Dark here. So this video is going to be a market lesson on support and resistance. So this is solely going to be support and resistance. We're going to show you where support transitions into resistance and where resistance transitions into support and how to use them and apply them in your analysis. So basically, we have labeled here in red all the resistance levels, and as price action moves lower, it establishes these resistance levels. So it breaks through the support. So this is a level established here. As it moves through, this now becomes resistance. As it continues to move lower, this becomes a level of resistance until it finally finds support and then transitions to the upside. So this is that bearish example. This is the bullish example. As it moves through these levels, it turns into support, moves through this level, turns into support, kind of like stairs. It's moving up. As you get to the next stair, it finds support there, next to the next stair, finds support there, and so on. It all depends on if you're going up the stairs or down the stairs. So here we are in another bearish example, going down the stairs, if you will. We step lower. We find another level of resistance, we move lower, another level of resistance, and so on and so on. So let's go ahead and translate this over to a chart. Okay, so we have a random chart pulled up here on the monthly time frame. This is AUD-CAD. Okay, so let's just go ahead and see if we can't, identify some key areas where support has turned into resistance to start. So this is the bearish example. So we're looking for price action to move down, right? So this is one right here off the bat. So let's go ahead and say, this has been a key support level, right? We can see that price action has rejected multiple times, once, twice, three times, and then finally moved through it. So this was a key support, definitely confirmed support level until, again, price action moved through it and then came back and retested as resistance. So this is an example of a transition from support into resistance right here. Let's go ahead and just mark this. This is resistance. Okay, so we can see that. It held multiple times, it rejected from the zone, price action moved through it pretty significantly, came back up, and then found rejection in that same zone. So that is support turning into resistance. And let's find a couple more examples. Again, this happens on all time frames. So, as you get closer to execution, you'll be able to identify these more minor levels. Again, we are here on the monthly, but we're going to drop down time frames in a moment here and kind of make sense of how this happens on all time frames. So here, off the bat, this is clear support. We can just see right there that we've seen rejection once, twice, three, four, five, many times in this area. Let's go ahead and label this. This is support. And it finally turned into resistance once price action moved through this support, came back, and retested. Okay? So this is now a huge resistance level. Just label that for you, resistance, right? So, some of these levels this would still be a resistance level if it had not come back and tested. If price action was just down here, this would still be a resistance because price action moved through it, just waiting to be tested. So technically, this area is still valid as resistance, as we can see price action pulling back. So it could find some rejection in this area as it did once before. We'll see. But for right now, we're here on the monthly. We're just trying to find these little areas of a transition, right? So this also looked like this was another major level as well. Let's go ahead and move this up so we can clearly see. So we can see right here, this was support. Let's go ahead and label it. So this is support because we saw massive rejection from this area, plenty times, quite a few times. And then it finally pushed through and then found resistance right here on this level. Right? This one actually tested. It found resistance. But here's the funny thing. Look, it found resistance right here. Found resistance right here. And then it broke back through and is now support once again. So look at this. So it goes from support to resistance to support again. And look at that. All because of how price action moves through it. So it was once support, then it was resistance and it held. Price action rejected against this level. And then it moved back through, turning into support once again, which also confirms this range. So now, if price action continues to move this way, we're looking for it to get back up to this resistance level here. So it's coming back through and looking to fill that range. So just a pretty interesting example of how we're seeing price action move. So let's just start from the beginning. This was support. It finally broke. It established a new level of support down here, came back up, found resistance, bounced between support and resistance multiple times. It established a kind of a median level of support here, as we saw much rejection off this 200 EMA. Rejection, rejection, rejection. It finally pushed through, kind of again squeezing this resistance and the support level, squeezing price action between a more narrow resistance and support level. So it moved through, found support here again, came back up, found resistance here, came back down, moved through support, tested this level again as resistance, came back down, found some support down here, and then moved back through resistance, turning it into support once again. So again, now we're looking to get back up towards resistance. But let's go ahead and drop time frames and see where, some more minor levels. To keep in mind, guys, the higher time frames are always going to be more significant. It's more data, it's more of a range, it's just more time, and you can see how powerful some of these levels are, especially on that monthly time frame. So let's go ahead and just identify some areas here on this daily time frame. So we could see that this was a pretty key area of resistance. If we just look left, right, this is a pretty key area of resistance, especially after it broke. Well, it was support first, then it turned to resistance. I'll explain in a second. So it was technically a level of support in here until price action moved through it. Let's go ahead and label it support. See, this is support. How many times price action rejected? Let's go ahead and make that a little more narrow. Make that a little more narrow. Okay, and then price action finally moved through it, tested that zone again as resistance this time. All right, so let's go ahead and just keep labeling. Support. Once support was broken, it became resistance. It became resistance until we saw that resistance level break again over here, and price action moved through it, came back down to test, and it became support again. Okay, so you can see that here. Just to reiterate, this is a daily support and resistance, and it is weaker than this higher zone up here, right? So this level has more significance than this zone down here. So that's a good daily example. Even down here is a pretty good example. Let's see, this was daily support right here, and then it turned into resistance once price action came up and tested it. Just go ahead and label that. And then it actually became support again once price action broke that level. So let's label that as well. And there we go. Okay, so let's explain this one a little bit. Again, this is a daily time frame support. Price action came down, found a low. This was then the established support. Came back up, tested resistance. Price action moved through this support, turning it into resistance as it came back and tested. Tested right here. It tested once and then twice. So it rejected from this level twice. So this was key resistance here. And this was resistance until price action moved through it finally, turning it into support. And this is, we'll label that one as well. So this was then support right here. Okay, so this, again, this happens on all time frames. Let's just drop down to a 4 hour and kind of get into it. See if we can't find any examples where this was resistance turning into support. So here's one over here. So this is a 4 hour level, right? This was 4 hour resistance right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more actually. So this was 4 hour resistance, and then it finally broke, turning it into support, right? And then it actually held all the way over to here. Let's take a look. Right, resistance. You guys can see how we're going through all these time frames, and it's all pretty much the same thing. It's all the same transitions. Resistance turning into support, support turning into resistance, and how you can identify it. So this is support right here. Okay, so again, another level in here. So let's just drop down time frames again. Just find another example on the 1 hour. Let's see for a second. So this is one right here. So this is just how you kind of find these transitions happening between support and resistance. So this was resistance right here. right? Again, this isn't meant to be confusing. We're just literally going around finding areas that are key areas that were resistance or support and then broken and transitioned into the other. So this was resistance, and then when did it turn into support? When it was broken and then tested. See this? Then look, I'm going to highlight this whole area. So this was resistance, finally broke, tested as support, tested as support, tested as support, and then it held as support until this broke here. And then it turned into resistance, right? I mean, it came close to testing it, but this was still a resistance level. And then it finally broke and turned back into support, right over here. So again, guys, this happens on all time frames, just to reiterate. The higher time frame, the more significant, right? But again, this happens on 30-minute, 15-minute, 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, monthly, weekly, you name it, guys, and you can identify all these kinds of levels. So this is pretty much the basics of support and resistance. Just want to get you guys in the the groove of identifying these levels, not being foreign to this concept at all. Because again, like a lot of people, if you're new, you may see this fall out here and then not know what to do. But if you look left, you can see that this was clear, was resistance, turned support, so that you now know this is a support level, and could then support a bullish bias for an overall for a trade. So very, very important key concept to have an understanding of. So this was, let's just finish labeling this and then we'll zoom out. So support, resistance, support. Whoops. Support. Okay, so now you guys can see also, we're on the 1 hour here, how small this zone is, right? So this is a 1 hour, this is a 4 hour. The 4 hour is more significant than the 1 hour. You can see the 1 hour here actually failed to hold price action, but the 4 hour caught it. So again, higher the time frame, more significant. There's more data, there's been more rejections of it, there's more orders at these levels and so on that will move the market or give you a reversal signal like here, this double bottom. So this is the 4 hour, and then let's zoom out. So again, that was the 4 hour there. This zone, this larger zone, is even more important as it's the daily zone. Let's keep zooming out. And then this zone right here is the daily, as this zone is the monthly. So this is even more important. You guys kind of see the pattern here, how you can break down these time frames and really dissect the market and identify these major versus minor levels of support and resistance and how they're transitioning within these larger trends and these larger zones. So just to give you guys a concept, just a key concept here, and then let's go ahead and zoom out to the monthly. And again, much larger zone, much larger zone. So again, guys, this has been support and resistance for our Forex League market lesson series. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.